Hi everyone, it's your book coach Liisa Kovala here. Grab a cup of coffee and settle in for a discussion about all things writerly. I'm the author of Sister's Winter War and Surviving Studhof, my father's memories behind the death cave, and I'm an author accelerator, certified fiction, and memoir book coach. As a Finnish Canadian, I also love my coffee. In this podcast, we'll take a coffee break together to chat with authors, publishers, book coaches, marketers, agents, publicists, booksellers, and many others. Welcome to Women Writing. So happy you could join us for a coffee and a chat. This week, I have a really special episode of Women Writing for you. We're going to be talking to authors Emily De Angelis and Daphne Gordon, and my co-host for the Rekindle Creativity Women's Writing Retreat, Dinah Laprairie. So we're talking all things retreat. Stay tuned. Hi, good morning, everyone. So great to have you all here. This is a really special podcast for me because normally I sit down with one person and we have a conversation, and today we have a group, and I'm so excited about it. So what I'd love to do is start by just some introductions. Maybe tell us who you are, maybe what you're working on, that kind of thing. I'm going to start with Dinah, although I think most people in my community know who Dinah is, but go ahead, Dinah.
I am Dinah. I'm a book coach and editor in Sudbury, Ontario, and I work with writers who want to see change. They want to take their experience and transfer it to their communities. And I'm here to help them write big-hearted books.
I love that. And Dinah is the co-host of Rekindle Creativity Women's Writing Retreat with me. And we are planning our, I want to say, third retreat for May, which is very exciting, and another one in the fall. And I think you just heard my puppy, Emmy, having a little bark. We'll see how she goes. Emily, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily De Angelis. I've known Liisa for, we were discussing a little earlier, for 100 years or something like that.
That's not right.
I was originally from Sudbury, so that's where most of my writing life began. I'm now relocated in my retirement to Southwestern Ontario. I write YA fiction and I write poetry, and my next project combines those two things, and I'm excited to have the ability in my life right now to just be a writer and not be all the other things I have been for many, many years. So and I love retreats. I
Love
love.
that. Living the dream, Emily. I love
Uh,
that.
uh,
So
I
good.
highly recommend retirement.
Retirement is good. That's amazing. How about you, Daphne?
My name is Daphne Gordon, and I'm in Toronto. I'm an author and a journalist, and I'm also a big lover of retreats. I've been on so many of them. I've taken so many writing courses and done so many writing retreats that I do actually consider myself an expert on this topic. And I'm currently working on a nonfiction book about psychedelics and substance education for families. And I'm also using zines and Substack as a way to develop my audience. And I'm kind of excited about zines right now.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I'm super excited to talk about retreats.
Awesome. And I follow you on Substack, and it's amazing. You have just the best Substack going. So we'll
Thank
make
you.
sure we have all of these links to books and whatnot in the show notes for people to go and pursue them. But so fun. So both of you came to Rekindle Creativity Women's Writing Retreat, just not at the same time. Emily, you came last fall to our Gorbay retreat, and Daphne was at our retreat in January in Huntsville and Muskoka. So what is it, like, not necessarily this retreat, but any retreat? What is it that brings you to a retreat? What is it about it that makes you think, oh yeah, I need to do that?
Well, for me, it's all about everything around writing for me is imagination. And I think when you change your location, it somehow frees up a mechanism in your brain, and um, it allows you to delve into ideas and images more so than if you're sitting in the same spot every day, which I do as well. But it's nice to have that broken up by a chunk of time. It's also nice to stay in a hotel room by yourself and not have to worry about, figuring out what you're going to eat, that kind of thing. also frees your imagination and your craft. I think it does anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm. Daphne?
I agree. It's great to be in a hotel room by yourself. And like for me, that's a big part of it. It's to escape domestic work. Like I still have a child at home and my husband works at home and I'm in my home office right now, but like just outside that door, they're like wondering what's for dinner. And I just find that that enters my consciousness so much that like yesterday is a good example. My husband misscheduled himself. He was supposed to drive our son to hockey, and he had a doctor's appointment at the same time. And so suddenly now I've spent my whole afternoon driving to hockey, and like I'm just so like likely to drop my creative work to take the reins of the domestic stuff that I really feel like being in a different space changes that relationship so much that it frees me up to think more clearly and to spend longer periods of time. And that's a really big thing. Like in my current life, if I can spend an hour working on one project, that's a big victory.
Yeah.
Whereas to be able to like spend 3 hours at something, you really go a lot deeper. You get a different result. And so it's that deepening of my relationship with my writing that I'm really looking for in a retreat. And another thing that deepens that relationship with my writing is relationships with other writers. Like instead of talking to my husband about dinner, I'm talking to writers about writing. And it really enters into my consciousness at a deeper level and it changes the way I'm producing and what I'm writing.
Love that. Yeah.
What you're saying, Daphne, really speaks, to where I am in my life too, where the household management does interfere with the goals that we have, right? It takes me a week to write a very short newsletter about 3 things in my life that are delighting me, but and that's because we're of all the obligations that we have, that women have, that and the expectations we have about how we're supposed to participate in the world around us, and what our actual obligations are.
Yeah.
Right. It's in yourself, right? Like my husband isn't being like, why aren't you making me dinner? It's more, it's a self-imposed expectation that I put on myself. And so the retreat is a self-imposed thing too, like it's an act of agency, I think, of saying to myself, my writing is really important. Like I'm spending this time and this money, and it's a gesture to my writing self to say, you are important. You are more important right now than doing laundry.
Love that. Well, and it's so interesting that so often of all our list of to-dos, the writing is often at the bottom. Like in our mind, it's one of the most important things. We feel like it's top, like it kind of should be at the top or near the top, but it gets pushed down so quickly. Like you say, as soon as your husband had an appointment and there was a conflict in the scheduling, you just have to step up and do the thing. And the writing is like, okay, it's like, it's just, I feel like that's the everyday struggle. Like there's always laundry, there's dishes, there's beds to make, there's errands to do, whatever it is. And we may have a goal for writing every day or whatever it is, but it seems to get pushed to the bottom. How do you handle that? Is there do you like, Emily, do you have a regular writing routine? Do you write every day?
I do. I joined a group through the Amherst Writers and Artists Association called PJ Writers. So every morning at 7:15, we gather online on Zoom and we chat for a few minutes, and then we all go silent and we write. We write for an hour. Then we come back and we share if we want to. It's, you're sharing in the chat, so it's not like you can share huge chunks, but if you want to share, you can share like a 50-word sample. People will read them and comment. But often what happens, and then when everybody at 8:30 it ends, everybody goes off on their way. But what happens is then I get usually another 45 minutes to an hour. So I get a good 2-hour block in the morning where I write. And nothing else is going on in our lives at that time because we're not working. We don't have small children, but it's Monday to Friday, and I can look forward to doing that every single day. And then the rest of the day, I might continue writing. I might switch from the project I'm working on to another writing project. I do social media stuff. I'm whatever it is, I have the flexibility of do it. And I'm actually more alert and more able to write in the morning than later in the day. So it suits my sort of intellectual cognitive style to be working in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that right in the morning. I've tried that. I used to try to get up at 6 in the morning before work to write for half an hour. And I'm not conscious. Didn't make
I
any
couldn't do
sense.
it. I couldn't do it when I was working. There was
It's
just
now.
too many, as Daphne said, there's just too many things
Yeah.
that are interfering in your brain to do that kind of thing. But since I don't have those things in the morning, that's my preferred time. So it works for me now.
Might have to try it again. Dinah, you were going to say?
Yeah, well, I love this idea of the writing group that you belong to, Emily. I've found over the last 2 years that co-working groups really work for me. To know that I'm working at the same time on my goals at the same time other people are doing the same thing. We don't have to have the same project. We don't have to have the same aims, but to know that we're in this, simultaneous effort.
Yeah, and there's a tiny bit of accountability that
Yes.
you sit there, and I used to leave my camera on, and you could see, like, if you looked, you could see everybody sort of busy, but I'm in revisions now, so I like to read aloud to myself, and I thought that just looks a little kooky. So now I turn my camera off, but I know there are between 30, 40, sometimes 45 other people writing with me, and there's a definitely an accountability there that you feel like, okay, I have to make the most of this. So
I love that. And
really
probably a third of them are also reading out loud to you, Emily. So
maybe.
you can write in there. What about you, Daphne? Do you have a regular writing routine at home?
It is, yeah. I mean, I would say it's a very flexible routine. I try to go to yoga in the morning, and I feel like the physical practice is my writing now. I've really noticed that if I'm using my body in that sort of like immersive way where I can't look at my phone, I can't like if I actually go to a physical class where there's a teacher and like
Nice.
I can't like bring my phone into the room, and I need that physical practice in my life. And I just feel like the physical strength that I feel in my body is a metaphor for the strength that I feel when I sit at my writing.
I love that.
And I write better, I write more when I'm having that physical practice. So I try to include that in my writing day. It's like, it's work hours, but I go to the class and then I try to work in the afternoon at my desk doing writing stuff. But I take a flexible approach to what is writing. Like sometimes it doesn't look like writing, but it is. And also, like Emily, I think like relationships are the key. And I've tried to use my experience in journalism. I worked in a newsroom and a newspaper for 15 years, and I just know what the productivity looks like. I used to get an assignment in the morning and I couldn't leave until I finished it. And so I know what that intensity feels like, and I can sort of find ways to reproduce that intensity if I need to. And that writing groups are okay, but there isn't as much accountability. So I try to use partnerships more, just finding one person and making a commitment to them, like stating out loud, like what I'm working on today. I'm trying to finish this proposal or write this chapter or whatever, the chunk that I'm working on, and working with a very short deadline. And that short deadline helps me like not try to perfectionize and not to like stretch out the work to make it, bigger and longer and more. And so those partnerships work for that because it's hard to find a group that, like Emily, it sounds great that you guys meet regularly, because I find groups like it doesn't always meet my needs, right? In terms of what my schedule is like and how much I can afford to pay. Sometimes there's a payment involved. And so I look for partnerships because it's more flexible to me. And then sometimes the partnership falls apart because that person, like, she stopped working on her book because she's sick or whatever. And then I could just find a new partner.
Yeah.
It's more flexible and it's more personalized to what I need. And like I have one that's a weekly at Thursdays at 3 p.m. And at 3 p.m. I'm tired. Like I'm not usually getting a lot of work done at that time. But I do find that just for 1 hour on Thursday afternoons, we meet for a body double writing session. And a lot gets done in that short amount of time. And it's so it kind of like re-energizes me late in the day.
Amazing.
And do you find that you're more likely to continue what you started during that session?
Oh yeah. Often we turn off the camera at 4 p.m., but I'll keep writing until dinner time. Like I've gotten into that kind of feeling of intensity of like, oh, I just want to finish this before I go to dinner.
Yeah.
Getting
Once I get started, I keep going.
important to
So
me.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
Single
Well,
tasking, right?
It's amazing. But it sounds like it's that some kind of community, right? Some kind of connection
Yes.
to other people, some like that you're not like we often think about writing as being so solitary, but it doesn't have to be. Yes,
It
you're
can't be.
you and
It's
the
not
page.
actually. We think it
Yeah,
is
I know.
solitary, but it isn't. It's actually, from my experience in the newsroom, it's, you need an editor to say, your idea is okay, but you need to narrow it down a little bit more. Like just somebody to be sitting across from you, hearing your ideas and saying, like, you can do better. Like, I believe in you. I know you can finish this today. I know you can, just having high expectations of you.
Love it.
Someone who believes in you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. I was speaking to somebody yesterday about idea of sisu, which I know Dinah knows and Emily probably does. It's just this courage and determination in the face of adversity. And you can use that kind of idea of sisu in your everyday life by, showing up, doing hard things, right? And then supporting your community and having, uplifting other people and supporting them in their efforts. And it starts this sort of internal drive that we have that we can kind of build that muscle to do it. So I think there's
I agree.
writers can really benefit from that concept.
Yes, and those partnerships that I've talked about, like I feel like it's such an important experience of giving to someone else and like indicating what you want by saying like I'm going to show up on time every Thursday at 3 p.m., right? Like I'm not going to be late and I'm not going to forget. And it's a way of showing your partner what you are looking for. And I also feel like it's a giving of karma. Like the more you put out there being a good partner to somebody or a good group member, giving, thoughtful feedback, like all of those ways that you show up for your community are showing the world what you need in return.
Yes.
And then it starts to arrive. Like if you don't have a relationship or a group, like you have to initiate it and then you have to be a good partner and then it will come.
Beautiful. Love that. So so just pivoting slightly from community, I know that there are times when I work from home now. So sometimes I just need to leave these four walls and maybe I can't go on a retreat or I can't, leave my town. But I find little mini ways to kind of have a personal little retreat. Do any of you find ways to do that either in your home space or maybe in your local area?
I did I think it was last winter. I don't know. Everything's just blending. Everything's
I know.
so fast. Last winter, I did what I called mini retreats. So I live in southwestern Ontario, and there's a lot of small communities within 20 minutes, half an hour. The furthest I went was probably 40 minutes. And I would pick a community, check to see where their coffee shop was, where their library was, and anything else that might intrigue me. And then I would first go and write at the library in that community, and then I would take myself to the coffee shop, have lunch, have a coffee, and I would write there. So I got a good chunk of writing time in these tiny places, and they were different. And so, like I was saying earlier, that seemed to unlock something in my cognitive process. And it seems counterintuitive. People go, "Oh, I can't write in a coffee shop. They're so noisy." And I didn't find that. I found it to be really stimulating. And I don't know if that's because I felt like I went away somewhere or um just a new environment. I can do that somewhat here where I live, but I tried to do most of it outside of the community. So there was a drive involved. and then I spent the day more or less. I've managed to get a huge chunk of my work in progress done with my little mini retreats, doing it that way.
I
That
love
makes
that.
sense to me. It makes sense to me, Emily, because when we write, we're writing in response to the world around us, right? And when you go to the next town over or to the coffee shop down the road, you're interacting with the world. And I can see how it unlocks your ability to respond to the world in your writing and opens up your writing. Even if you're not writing about what's around you, it can be you're in the world, right?
And it kind of reinforced my faith in in mankind. I know that sounds big, but I went to this tiny little place called Dorchester. They had like one coffee shop. They did have a public library. The grocery store had had a fire, so there was no grocery store. Like it's a small place. And I got in there, and the woman like, hi, who are, sort of an introduction. And I said, it's okay. I'm just going to work over there if that's okay. And she would come back. Did you need more coffee? Are you going to have some lunch? We have some, we have this and that. And then at noon, I swear, 30 high school kids came in. They were the most well-behaved high school kids I've ever interacted with outside of a classroom. They were they were quiet, they had their lunch, and then they all moved up. Like it just was such a positive experience in this tiny little place that otherwise I may not have ever visited in that capacity. So and I got a lot of work done. I was there for quite a few hours. So just
And
they kept pouring coffee. That was awesome.
I love that. So great. And when you tell people what you're working on, they're so interested, right? It's so
Yeah, yeah.
fun. Yeah.
She was interested that I was a writer and I was writing. And
Yeah.
by that point, the book was coming out in May, but I didn't have it. So, it brought a little bit of interest to the project. So yeah, I really enjoyed
And
my
I
little.
think also the drive, like when you leave your house and you're in the car for a little while, and you just allow yourself to like look at the landscape and think. Dinah knows this. Every time I'm on a road trip, I think she dreads me coming home because I always have 8,000 ideas and I'm texting her. I thought about this and what about that? Because that's when like I just have nothing else to do but drive. So my head is going to idea to idea to idea. So if I was stayed home, it's just that it's not the same stimulus, right? So I think there's something to that leaving your location.
I'd
And
like to hear from Daphne on this because
yeah,
you're in the center of a major urban area, aren't you?
true.
You're not driving for long distances, I imagine, every day.
I don't use the car very much, and we only have one car, and it's for hockey driving basically now. So
Love the
I
hockey
love that
car.
idea though of going to a small town because it does have such the pace and the sounds, like it can have such an important effect on your consciousness. Like you hear more birds, you talk to people that speak differently, like it just the change from a big city to a small town. So I might borrow your idea.
Oh,
But I do
borrow.
do that. I have I worked on a novella that I self-published, and it was basically like done in cafes along Queen Street in Toronto. And that was how I sought material for my work. Like I would go to a cafe, and the book was also set along Queen Street, so I would kind of go to like the story was a writer leaves her house in the morning and then goes for an all-day walk on Queen Street and like interacts with different people and spaces, and it's kind of a Flannery idea of like observing social change through walking on the street. And so I would just take myself into different areas of Toronto and just be there and to see what I noticed and then find ways to work what I noticed into the work. So I would be like overhearing conversations and writing them down. And that I can tell you is like such an amazing practice to do to get started on your writing. Like borrowing an actual thing from a dialogue that you overhear at a cafe or at a restaurant or I also overhear people in the stands at hockey games, like wherever I am. I'm like, I'm secretly like, writing it on my phone because just hearing people's dialogue the way it actually is and then writing it down teaches you how to write dialogue that sounds real. Like it's such an important thing. And those moments are everywhere, no matter where you live. And yeah, so I love doing it in my own city. I haven't been doing it as much though, because like since the pandemic, I've really gotten more housebound and maybe it's something that I need to like reintroduce into my life again.
Yeah,
Kind of miss
right.
it, but not in February.
Well, let's go back a year then, Daphne, because you got on the road in January in a snowstorm. I came to the
Yes, it was a big
Creativity Retreat.
snowstorm.
So what what was what interested you and what urged you to make that shift and drive, I don't know, must have been 4 hours up a snowy highway
Yeah.
to the retreat?
Well, there were a lot of factors that maybe we should talk about them. The practical factors of cost, timing, length, accommodations, food. Like those practical things are actually really important for me when I'm choosing a retreat. And so it fit into my schedule with using the car. It was affordable to me at that time. The length of time was the right amount of time for me to spend away from my husband and my son, like not doing the things that I contribute to our household. It wasn't too much to put on my husband. Um, and so, and also like I had some relationship with you, Dinah and Liisa, like it's a big risk to take, right? To take that time that I can't do that more than once a year, really. And that money to go into a situation where I just don't really know whether this is going to be for me. What if the food is bad? What if it's pouring rain and there's no common spaces? I'm just stuck in my hotel room, like. So I really think that those practical factors matter a lot. And also the nature. Like, I loved how we had all of the things that we needed inside that resort hotel. Like there was a nice spa. I went for a massage. I think I actually went for a massage and a facial. Like it was very like pampering inside that hotel. But then out the view was like, an icy lake and trees, and out the front was a beautiful place to walk. And to have the exposure to nature for me, it's kind of a really key part of what I call a retreat, like what I would consider something worthy of spending my time and money on.
Beautiful.
Emily, we got brought you in not such a long distance because you're probably already heading to Manitoulin Island at some point. But you joined us in Gore Bay at the Rekindle Creativity Retreat in October.
I was it was kind of a unique situation because I'm over 6 hours away from Gore Bay, where I live and where Gore Bay is. But I have property on Manitoulin Island. So we were on the island all summer. We're building a cottage. Um, so we're pretty intently staying on the property, doing the same thing day in and day out. I had a few things I had to do with respect to the release of my book over the summer. So we were going a little bit back and forth. And I didn't do a lot of writing just because we didn't have a full source of electricity. And there were a lot of things that meant my summer wasn't going to be full of writing. It was going to be full of hammers and nails and siding and stuff. But going back to the island as more of a tourist was very attractive. I was familiar with the resort. I was familiar with the restaurant. I was familiar with the area, but not as a tourist, not as a writer per se. So it was comfortable for the fall. The weather wasn't going to be an issue. I could drive to Sudbury and then from Sudbury come, sort of break up the trip. So there were a lot of things, like Daphne was saying, that kind of just fit into my life at that point. The winter one, I would have loved to have gone to the winter one, but from where I live, that's like 3 weather zones
Right.
and lake effect everything, hours and hours and hours and hours. So it really, I was like, I wasn't looking forward to driving in that weather, but in October it was perfect. I met somebody who was going to the retreat, and Marie Mawini was going. So we met in Sudbury. I drove her. Like everything was fitting.
Yeah.
And it was a glorious time of year to be there. The weather was great. And then all those other things that matter in terms of I was familiar with the restaurant. I was familiar with the hotel. Although I hadn't stayed there, I knew about it because I'd heard about it for years and years, because that's a place that we're often in. So it was away from home. It was somewhere familiar, but it worked. And I had a brand new project I was starting, and it was very useful for that jump start. So I was happy to be in a familiar, unfamiliar location.
Love that.
So let's talk a little bit about what projects you brought with you to work on during the retreats, and what you had hoped to accomplish.
Well, I had the book, The Stones of Burren Bay, came out in May. I'd finished the first draft pretty much of my second work in progress. And so I have this third idea floating around my head. But of course, when I'm at home, I don't like to, if I'm in the middle of something, I don't like to leave it to work on something else, just because, you're at home and you're goal directed and you want to get it done. The retreat in Bay allowed me to have that whole 5 days or whatever it was to just focus on this new idea. And so I have all of my novel ideas for YA are around the arts and how important the arts are to youth, especially in the world in which we live in now. It's nutty, crazy things happening. And if you don't have an outlet, if you don't guard your mental health, and this is maybe even more important for youth than for adults who, we've seen a lot more. We know troubles come and go, but when you're 15, how do you maintain your sanity, your sense of self, all those things? So all of my work deals with the role of arts in the lives of teenagers. Stones of Burren Bay was visual arts. My work in progress now is poetry. So I had this idea for another work around music. I am not a musician, so I needed to have time to sort of ferret out these ideas. And originally it was an adult concept, but I just decided that no, I love YA. I want to write YA. I am a YA writer. And so it gave me a chance. It gave me a whole chunk of time to really sit with the idea and, doodle and write and do a little bit of research and sort of ferret out the basic idea. I didn't get an outline. I didn't get a full, synopsis or anything like that written, but I did get the basics of the outline moving forward. So I know my characters, I know my timelines, I know the beginning and end for each protagonist. It's the first time I've written anything with multiple protagonists and multiple timelines that are, doing that. So it gave me that opportunity to just forget about everything else I was working on, forget about all the promotion for the book that released in May, and just work on the next idea. Because I think that's how you deal with things like writer's block and all those things, is have another idea in the wings that you can sort of go back and forth to at some point. So yeah, it gave me that opportunity, and it was great. It was really fun to have that opportunity to start something new. Because you get into those revisions of your work in progress, and it's like, when is this going to end? I just want to go on to the next idea. And if I can pull it off this year, I will have another retreat later in the year where I can go back to that idea because everything else should be finished and off, by a certain time. So yeah, it's the next great idea you get to work on for me.
Yeah.
Lovely. Daphne, what did you bring to rekindle creativity?
I was working on a book proposal for my nonfiction book. At the time, it was called Psychedelic Curious. And I think our retreat was about 5 days, right?
For
Yeah.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
4 or 5 days. And so for me, that was a short amount of time that allowed me to put that short deadline on my work so that I could stop like stretching it out, always trying to make it bigger, always trying to make it more perfect. So I was like, I want to have my proposal finished by the end of this retreat. And that gave that sense of urgency that I really need. And also, you guys were so great to provide feedback to everybody at some point. Like we all had appointments during the retreat that we were working towards giving you some work to look at. And then you, even during the retreat, you made time to read what was a pretty long document. Like I think it was at that time like 40, 50 pages. And you both gave feedback on it during the retreat. Like that's a pretty short turnover to get feedback. But knowing that you were going to be reading it during the retreat put that urgency into the work that I was doing. And that's so important to me. Like I have like I need to work with my own perfectionism of like every paragraph, like when is this done? You know? So the retreat gave some brackets to when is this done? And truthfully, like it wasn't really done, but like it was done, if you know what I mean. Like I had all the parts of the proposal in there. Like I had it looked done. Like it still needed work and I'm still working on it, honestly. Like a proposal is never done, it's always changing. But it put that bracket on it so that I could like flesh out the parts of it that weren't done yet and just have a deadline to work towards. And I think that was like one of the most valuable parts of the retreat that I did with you guys is that you did that feedback piece. And it's so important. And like, I don't know if all retreats have that.
It's
so
something that we felt was important to add to each of the retreats. And we are doing it again with the retreat coming up in May. It's a weekend one, so it'd be a little more compressed. And maybe we can't give as much attention, like in terms of time, to each of the writers, but
even just a little amount of time, and also knowing that you are both skilled at giving feedback. Like getting feedback from a group is totally different, right? Not everybody that gives you feedback is going to know how to do feedback and like how to make the feedback useful, like something that you can work into your document and actually respond to. And so it can feel really scary to receive feedback from a group that doesn't always know what they're doing. Whereas when you know you're getting feedback from people like Liisa and Dinah, you know that the feedback is going to be useful. And so it's something that you can respond to. And it isn't going to set you back and like make you stop working on your project because you don't know what to do with this feedback.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think Dinah and I felt strongly about giving our participants some individual time, because in a group you can have a conversation that's interesting about the project and about writing in general, about certain topics, but writers really want to talk about their own work and problem solve on specific issues and have a deeper conversation. And honestly, that's just such a joyful part of it. I think Dinah would agree, like to sit with a writer and just chat about their book and what they're going through and brainstorm and all the things. That's just really fun for us. And then of course our group discussions are great too, because you get so many different varied ideas and it gets everyone's ideas sparking. So I love that as well.
And it's a little bit of therapy. Like, let's be honest here. Like, I really believe that about writing coaches and book coaches, that like the shit comes out, right? Like you start to say stuff like, I haven't been working very hard on my book because I'm having marital problems or whatever. Like it's impossible to like pull apart your actual everyday life from your writing project. And so when you try to write about, or when you try to talk about your writing project, it can feel so vulnerable. And so it's so nice to be talking to someone who has a grounding in like how to help someone feel comfortable talking about those things and to not feel judged or not to feel rushed. You're not necessarily telling them how to deal with their marital problems, but just to be able to like hear that, to acknowledge that, yes, that is very intertwined with your writing life. There's no point in trying to separate them out.
Yeah.
And so just to be free to talk about how the personal part of writing is so demanding and so psychological, like to have a safe place to talk about that is so, I think it's like, can really move you forward in your writing practice, not just with your project, but with your writing practice.
If you can learn something about yourself
Yeah.
along that journey, even if it's over, 3, 4, 5 days, that's critical too, because you never stop. You're developing, growing, and becoming who you're going to be all the time. And so when you expose yourself to new experiences, that's going to put the light on certain things. Like when we had to do a certain physical activity outside in front of everybody else.
Tell me more.
I know. Put you a little bit outside your comfort zone.
Majorly outside my comfort zone.
Yes, for sure.
So as background, Liisa and I will do mindset sessions in the morning to get people reactivated, get right back in, get into their writing, perhaps with some new energy or a new perspective. And at our last retreat, Liisa took out her ribbons from rhythmic gymnastics, and
that's a great idea.
Well, you
I
would
don't know
think
if Emily
so.
feels
Emily
that
wasn't.
That's a good idea.
What I discovered, I'm 60 years old, and what I discovered is I have always had body dysmorphia issues, and they're still there 60 years later. And I got some good writing out of it. I hated every second of it, but I got a great writing out of it.
There you go. So success, and I'll take it, Emily. I'll take it. We do try to have activities that are trying to engage different senses. So that was one where we incorporated movement and music, which is really important for me in my life. But also we did drawing and various things. So a walk in nature. Chocolate. We had a chocolate. Dinah's sister has Finnia chocolate in on Manitoulin, and we did we went to visit her place and see how the chocolate was made there. But with Daphne's group in Muskoka, Elizabeth came to see us, and we did a chocolate tasting, and that was amazing. Who knew about all the flavors, and really gets language and senses and taste buds, all the things kind of connected. It was amazing. So yeah.
And those things that I've been to other ones where you've done pottery, where you've gone to see natural sights, and those are all really important things to do. You need to play, I think, in order to write. And those other experiences are probably more beneficial than, I would say, even if you take almost more beneficial than a course. A course, you're going to learn something. Absolutely, you are. But when you go somewhere where you can just be experiential, it has a deeper resonance with you, I think.
I agree.
Now, Liisa and I are looking ahead to future retreats. We have one planned in May 23rd to 25th on the French River here in northeastern Ontario. And we're looking ahead to perhaps October this year. So we want to ask both of you, what do you feel is the most important draw as you look at all the retreats available, at the different, maybe, you look at the different ways you can retreat. What should we be thinking about? What kind of experience should we be designing?
For me, I don't think there's a specific kind of experience. Although I have to say, the thought of being able to go to a larger city, stay in a quaint little place and explore in between all of that, that's appealing. I'm not going to lie, that's appealing. But I think for me, the ultimately is what it's the proximity and the expense is what really defines things for me. I also have some food allergies, so I have to know that I can get what I need. I just came back from a teen festival in Corpus Christi, Texas, and the further south you go into the United States, aside from all the political stuff, is that you're further away from anything that's gluten-free. Like it's not, and coffee, I might add. It's just not on it's not in their cultural understanding of anything. And so I would need to be sure I could eat and get a coffee. It's more lifestyle things, I think. I wouldn't want to go anywhere that was physically uncomfortable. I'm not going to go camping in a tent on a safari with wild animals outside my tent. I'm not going to do those sorts of things. It's comfort and then the practicalities and expense that sort of direct me the most. I'm pretty much open to any environment, where a traditional kind of retreat environment. And I like short things as much as I like long. Like somebody said, I'm offering a day retreat, I don't know, in Niagara on the Lake, and we're going to start in the morning, and that would be just as appealing to me as a lovely one along the French River that's over a few days. So I'm pretty flexible. It's more about the practicalities that help me make the decision, and the time of year, deciding, am I free that time?
That's right. Yeah. What about you, Daphne?
I also love that you're doing it close to me. Like I have, get lots of invites to go to Tuscany or whatever that I can't afford to do time-wise or money-wise. And so I just really appreciate that you guys are exploring Ontario. And people are free to come from elsewhere to enjoy Ontario too. But for me, doing it in a driving distance is really important for me right now financially. And also just because like I don't need to go to Tuscany to write, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Right.
nice to go to Tuscany, but it's not really getting me a better writing retreat.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the practical things are really important. And then I also look for like a nice balance of structure and freedom of like, I know that I'm going to need like a 3 hour period to do my yoga followed by my writing, my own projects where I'm not being asked to come to a meeting or a group session or whatever. I need at least 3 hours to do that. And then, but I also don't want the whole day. Otherwise, I just like I kind of like I spend too much time I spend too much time working on my own project. It doesn't move me forward. It just like doesn't help me actually. So I like to have that balance of like, yes, we're gonna go do some ribbon gymnastics outside, like getting me out of my comfort zone and having different experiences that make me see the world a little differently and make me feel a little uncomfortable possibly. And yeah, and also like around my phone, having some structure around my exposure to media. And like, is there other people who are holding their phones a lot? Like, I guess I kind of look for that vibe of like other people want to be on the same kind of media retreat that I do. It's sometimes a little hard to tell. And so maybe that would be something that you could think about in the content that you create in advance to share with people what it's going to be like is to like directly talk about that of like, if you want, we will take your phone between these 3 hours or for the whole weekend or whatever. Like talk to people about how you're going to help them with media exposure. Or if you're not going to, that's okay too. But it's just something that I think about when I decide whether I go on a retreat or not.
Yeah.
Good, because you did describe it as, in terms of time, you had like a bracket of time, like bookends to work within, and you're coming with a goal, and to that we could.
And there is a difference, and Daphne, you brought this up. There is a difference between a holiday and a writing retreat, and you have to clarify what that is in your own mind. If I got, I have this dream of the many retreats they hold in Ireland, but I know I'm not going to Ireland without my husband, just because that's a holiday. And then how much writing do you get when, and I mean, he's quite happy to leave me on my own, but how much writing am I going to get when I know my partner's there and this place feels like a holiday, not a writing retreat? So, you know, I think there has to be, and those are all decisions we individually make, of course, but there have to be so many things in place for you. Like, I don't think you can address everybody's needs. People have to sort of pick and choose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I personally think the Rekindle creativity retreats are very close to the process I want to undergo when I go to a retreat.
Love
So
that.
I think that's important.
And I love what Daphne said too about the phones, because it's not something that Dinah and I had talked about it in advance. Like we try to discuss all the possibilities. But what I noticed, and I'm not sure other folks noticed, is that everyone was so engaged in what they were doing, whether it was a walk in nature or sitting down and having a conversation or coaching or whatever we were doing, the little mindfulness activities. I just don't remember phones being really out there or used. I think everyone was just there in the moment with each other, supporting each other and having conversations. And so I'm sure people went back to their rooms and, checked their social media perhaps, but I felt like even myself, I'm on my phone too much. You feel like you just want to set it aside and be present and be with these folks and focused on the work and each other and your environment. So it's something to be really cognizant of, Daphne. I think that was a really great point. That this is an opportunity for us to step away from not only our daily responsibilities at home, but also from the outside world that presses in on us through social media and all of those things.
And I think a retreat is a really optimal opportunity to examine your relationship with media and how it comes into your consciousness and how it's affecting your writing.
Yeah.
And so just talking about it at the beginning, like maybe you're not taking people's phones away, but you're giving them an opportunity to say, okay, I do have my phone with me here this week. How do I want to use it? What is my practice going to be? Am I going to check social media once, or am I just going to check it as much as I want? Like just to sort of like make a plan and then notice whether you can actually follow through on that plan is a way of practicing having a plan in everyday life too, of like just being aware of how it is affecting your writing, whether think about it every day or not, it is.
And I think
And
that's
I
what our
also
hope
think
is
like there's so few opportunities now to get away from your media, like to have some boundaries and some structure that help you not pick it up anyway, even though you said you weren't going to. Like I have gone on a retreat at my yoga ashram in British Columbia where there's a lot more of a culture of not using a phone and not like there's a library where you can go and get a Wi-Fi signal to check your email or whatever, but it's only in that one little building where the library is.
Yeah.
And so it just like it puts boundaries around. And to me now, after I've been going there for 15 years, and as the 15 years have evolved into the smartphone era, my relationship with this space has changed a lot because I now see it as a place that I can go. It's a safe place that I can detach from my phone.
Yeah.
And there's not that many places now where you can go and have help getting away.
Yeah. And
And
when you do use it, it's a real conscious choice, right? You have to go to that building and you're using it consciously and it's for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
That's like, and I think that's what Dinah and what I would like out of our retreats is that you're pausing from your everyday life, you're feeling rejuvenated and we say rekindled and then you can go back into your daily life, maybe with a little bit altered views or change some practices or just looking at your project with new eyes or being reinvigorated to work on it. But and even that social media piece that, okay, I don't actually need to be on this all the time. I can use that time for writing instead. Like those are all, I think, great benefits.
And
So
would you
actually,
consider being the locked box for people? Like, would you consider at the beginning of a retreat saying, like, if you want to put your phone in a locked box between the hours of 9 and 6, or for this entire retreat, like, we'll take it from you now. Thank you very
So
much.
Daphne, I have to say I was a high school teacher for a very long time. And
Yeah.
on my wall, I had a cell phone spa. And I would
Oh,
tell the students that your phone needs a break from you.
yeah,
And they would
yeah,
slip their phone into the little pocket.
yeah,
And at the end of class, they would go and pick it up. Just a little break for the students, for the phone, for us to focus and be together. And, some students resisted it. But
yeah,
if you have an opportunity to, tell people like this is here for you if you want it, it's
yeah,
amazing how people take advantage of that and it becomes part of a practice because
yeah,
the phone isn't gone. It's going to be there
yeah,
when you come back to it. The social media posts are still going to be there. It's all
yeah,
good. Your messages are going to be there, but it's like take a little break and your phone could have a rest too. And
yeah,
so something like that is a great idea for folks who want to participate. Obviously you'd have to make it completely
optional.
voluntary, but
Yeah,
I think a lot of us would say, yep, I don't need this today.
yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah. Even just
You
for
could
one
even
day on the retreat to try
Yeah,
it.
you
exactly.
could even assign somebody, like I know a lot of times people want photos for social media posts and what have you. You could even
Yeah,
assign
photo
a
hour.
photographer who
Yeah.
is they're the only ones taking pictures today,
Yes.
and you can connect with them and get the photos or send them out by email, however you want to do it, so that you can still record what it is you're doing, but not everybody has to be have the phone in their
The
hand.
same photo of the sunset.
Okay.
I think
Exactly.
this conversation really speaks to like how our daily environments have so many distractions, right? And our attention is being pulled in so many directions. Um, and so our ability to focus on our creative source, really gets tampered down. And so as we look ahead to the year ahead for both of you as writers, I'm wondering how you plan to rekindle your creativity, how to keep those coals burning.
For me, I've again, I'm in an enviable position. I don't have my children at home. I don't have a job that requires my mental time and energy. So I can sort of pace myself, and I've made a rule for myself because I'm sitting here looking at four women who are probably all doers. If somebody came up and said, we'd like to have a writing group to do this, would you like to join? We're all doers. And I have just made a decision. I made this when I retired, but um, more so for 2024 and going into 2025. I'm not leading anything. I've just decided I'm not being in charge of anything. And that's how I'm protecting my creative time and my creative energy. And so I have a few projects that are going to keep me moving forward. Um, I have, I've been asked to teach a few creative writing courses. I'm doing presentations at the art gallery with my ekphrastic of Florence stuff. So I've got things plotted through the year. My daughter is also getting married in April, so it's
Yay.
it's going to be a busy winter, but I really protect myself by making choices and rekindle myself by making choices that feed in back into who I am as a writer and what I do as a writer. I'm not going to be the president of any organization or vice president of any. I'm not going to do it. I will do that in my house. I'll be the treasurer of my house, but I'm not going, I'm protecting myself. And too many times, I think, especially women, although I've watched my own partner do this, if you have skills, you tend, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then you just strip yourself of not only the ability to write now, but that rekindling that you want to do moving forward. I'm hoping to by the fall do something in the fall. I don't know what nature it's going to take on. I don't know if it'll be a full retreat or if it's just going to be, I'm going to go a few days. I have dreams, like I'm dying to do a residency in Dawson City in the Pierre Burton House. I don't know why, but I'm dying to do that. Uh, that won't happen anytime soon. But I think you have to have dreams for yourself as a writer. I think that's what the rekindling is. It's dreams of having time to write, dreams of going on a retreat, things you want to do in the future, but you have to protect your writing life.
I used to have a quote above my desk, and I think it was by Elizabeth Warren, the US politician, and it said, "Don't be the one left holding the broom."
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. Because, Liisa, I know Liisa and I've both been presidents and secretaries and treasurers of writing organizations. Yeah, you need those people. I think a lot of those organizations are on their way out because I know my adult children are not interested in that kind of thing. I think that's a generational thing. But I'm not going to take on a job to keep something alive when it should really maybe die. But I am going to protect myself as a writer. And
Yeah, and
that's the rekindling for sure.
and giving yourself permission to be the one that's doing, like, focusing on the work that's important to you. That's going to have the greatest impact on your life, on your health, your ability to speak to the world.
And it comes down to that. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And so every time you say yes to those organizations that, you have this, like you say, you have the skills to do it, and you have maybe, you care about them and you want them to do well, or whatever reason you might consider doing those things. Whenever you say yes to those things, now you have just less time for the things that really matter to you personally. And that's a real hard lesson to learn.
People now, when you're a yes person,
they do.
And
it's like it's on your forehead.
Yeah. And then you have to, now I didn't when I was younger, but now I have a very strong knowledge of what it is I'm going to do and what it is I'm not going to do. So I can't be swayed. That doesn't mean people aren't still looking for the broom holders, right?
But you get better at saying no, I think, over time.
Yeah.
The more you say that, the easier it gets. So I'm learning.
Saying yes to.
A huge part of rekindling and keeping my creative life fresh is by investing in my creative life, whether that's in a day retreat to a coffee shop or a 5-day retreat in a beautiful location. It's knowing that is my creative life is important. It's not always been that way. As I said, I'm in an enviable position, but I am, and I've recognized it. So now I have to take it by, the bull by the horns kind of thing.
Yay, that's great. What about you, Daphne?
Well, I'm going to borrow all of Emily's idea. I like your idea of going to a small town just for a couple days. I might try that. I'm also going to stick with some guidelines that I've made for myself during Phone Free February. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's a thing you can sign up for and read about it online. And I've taken all the social media apps off my phone, and I've removed, like, I don't have a Facebook or Twitter or Instagram account anymore. I took my profile off there basically. And so just minimizing my exposure to social media. And I also think I need to get a little bit better at scheduling and informing my family of my schedule, of my writing schedule, of, like, these are the articles that I'm working on. This is when they're due. Like, making it look to them more like a job and less like a thing I do when I'm not cleaning toilets,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's so good. Amazing. So I think I want to thank everybody for participating in this conversation. It's just so enlightening and lovely to see you all again. Perhaps with our final words, maybe we could go around, and if you were to recommend any retreat, or particularly a rekindle creativity, what might you tell a friend about why they might want to think about going to a retreat? And I know that we've kind of answered that in lots of ways, but
that's a big question.
It's a big question.
I think we all come to it for our very personal reasons, but I think what it is, it's changing your circumstances to see what that brings.
Oh,
You know,
nice.
it's like changing a job, or maybe your relationships aren't working. You have to be brave enough to change your circumstances. And I don't mean you have to quit your job and divorce your partner. I mean, you just pick yourself up, pack a suitcase, pick yourself up, and put yourself into another location and see how it plays out. I suspect for most people, there's going to be a win in that, unless you've got some kind of really complex issues, mental health issues where you can't go outside your home. I think everybody's going to have like, oh, that was fun kind of response to changing your environment, to putting yourself into another location.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Emily. What about you, Daphne?
Could you repeat the question again?
Just wondering if you were to tell a friend or recommend a writing retreat for a friend, like what would you tell them?
I would say to focus on like figuring out the practical things and like look for a retreat that works, for your life the way we've talked about in this conversation. And then to think of it as creating a white space around your writing life, like to take away the things that try to intrude and get in
Beautiful.
and just see how that white space feels. Yeah.
I love that. I love
Beautiful.
that. Thank you, everyone. That was amazing. And I just want to thank you again for participating and being part of Rekindle Creativity as, I guess we can say, alumni now.
Mm.
And I can't wait to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion about retreats. If you're interested in exploring your creativity in a safe and supportive environment of women writers, join us for a weekend getaway on the French River in beautiful Ontario from May 23rd to the 25th, 2025. Learn more at rekindlecreativity.com. Do you have writing goals that you want to achieve in 2025? If you need support, encouragement, accountability, and community, join the Women Writing Circle. We meet bi-weekly to set writing goals and get pages done. Go to Women Writing on Substack and subscribe. Let's create a little magic this year. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing! Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.